Oh, hey everybody. Thanks for coming in. This is Painting with me, John Galvin, different than John Caspian. It's an important distinction to make. And today I am working on Troggoths. So Troggoths are part of the new Gloomspite Gits faction, which is pretty neat. And these are the big lumbering guys that kind of complement the small diminutive goblins of the Gloomspites. And I am working on my Troggoth boss, who is the Dankhold boss, and he is the leader of my army. And I've already kind of started on these guys. Hopefully you can see down there at the other point of the camera, or at the bottom point of the screen. I got some rock gut trolls, and now I am doing some work on my Dankhold boss. These guys have all been airbrushed, and after the airbrushing, I have done a shade of coal black on them. Not all of them have been shaded yet, and I'll probably do this after I'm done blacking in the insects on this guy's base, and we'll go from there. We'll probably do a shade on the underbellies, which is this nice kind of like white creamy color. But if you guys have any questions about why I'm doing the things I'm doing, or if you have any questions for your personal paint projects, please shoot me a message and I will be more than happy to answer. That's what I'm here for. And yeah, we'll have a good time today. I've been really enjoying both building and painting these models. They're an absolute delight. And it's actually like one of those things where I'm kind of like hesitant to work on the other two units of rock gut trolls that I have, because after that I'm done, you know, and I don't want to be done because those kits are so much fun to put together. I just finished my other Dankhold, Troggoth instead of the boss, and once again he was an absolute delight to put together, so I am just super hesitant about this really fun project coming to an end. But that's honestly one of the reasons why I chose this army, was to paint it quickly and efficiently. So we are so one of the big problems I end up having with a lot of my armies is I don't finish it by the time I move on to the next one, and that's what I'm hoping the strength of this army is, since my list at max point value is probably only going to be, you know, 18 to 20 something models. That's pretty good. That's something I don't necessarily have to like worry about too much. So yeah. All right, so he is done, and we are now going to move into painting rock gut number dos. And so I've already worked a little bit on him. I'm not sure how much you can kind of see on him, but he's got the wash. It's a purple black wash over this magenta base that I did, and he has his underbelly done, but not washed or shaded yet. So now I'm going to come in and shade the peach parts, or the magenta parts, with this like coal black blue. And then I got one more trog to do, shading, and then we can move into a different detail. So if there's any techniques or something like that you want me to particularly do on this stream, please let me know. If not, I'm just going to kind of wing it and do my own thing. But I'm here to do any sort of technique or detail that you like. So we're going to start off making the wash out of coal black. Got to make sure it's good. Yeah, it's good. But you're just going to take coal black out and you're going to thin it down with water, and I like to use a little bit of mixing medium to add a little bit more transparency, but keep the body of it, so I can work with it with my brush a little more. But 2 dollops of coal black is probably more than enough. But make sure it's nice and shady. I've noticed lately too that the coal black has been separating on me, and I don't know if I changed pots of coal black because I have a million of the P3 paints of every variety, and I don't know if it was due to that particular pot or if it was something with how I was mixing it or whatever, but we're changing pots, seeing if that fixes it. And I'll kind of hopefully be able to illustrate what's going on if it happens. So, all right, on to shading. So this is not going to be like your standard like GW wash where you're kind of like heavy-handed with it. I did that on the back stones. This one is going to be much more targeted, and I'm going to go for those deep recess areas, and I'm going to be pulling my brush back a whole lot. And so the idea is you'll probably have 2 brush. The idea is to get subtle soft transitions and not heavy, super heavy dark lines. So you want to focus on where 2 areas meet, like the stone scales and the muscly tissues, and you'll put some down, change brushes, and then kind of feather out the shade that you put in. And the big thing you're looking for is making sure that it doesn't end up being splotchy or anything like that. So, and we're just going to keep doing this. And this kind of shadowing, I wanted to have a color transition for the shadow, because normally if I wasn't doing this, like the obvious like shade color would be like a purple, a darker purple, whether it be a deeper magenta or even just slightly shifting over to a more violet. But I want to have this transition to blue. One, it kind of knocks down the magenta of it, which I like. And then the second thing, it kind of, to me at least, establishes that like dankness of the trolls. So that I really appreciate. Because when you do something in bright colors like this, no one's really going to look at that and be like, yeah, that guy lives in a cave. And that was one of my issues choosing a color scheme of what reflected where they lived the best. And I decided this one because I wanted to have a little bit of a challenge with it, and then also have a lot of fun with like the color theory and the placement and all that. So we'll kind of see how the final turns out, but so far I'm really kind of enjoying the play that the coal black does with this magenta. And also I'm a sucker for cyan and magenta schemes, and the current plan, until someone stops me, is to make their noses shift into a blue. So I think that would be kind of cool. Okay, so we're probably going to be a little bit more harsh with our shadows, especially inside. I don't know if you guys can see it all that well, but on the inside of this arm, one, we have that nice line of where that rope goes, and then two, a lot of this area is going to be naturally in the shadows, so we ourselves can be more liberal with the application of the shade. Now that's not to say like the whole thing has to be coal black by the end of it, but there should actually be more representation of shadow in it. So And one thing to really note, especially while doing this style of army, is, or the style of technique, the shade technique, is you're going to have to be a little bit patient, because you're not going to be able to work this down into like a hard shadow the first go. It might take you a couple of times, and a lot of that is because of the color shift. You know, it's going to be really difficult for these translucent layers of paint to shift from a reddish color to a green bluish color. So don't get bent out of shape if on the first pass it's not exactly what you're looking for, because a lot of it's going to come in at later and later applications. So like I said before, going in under the armpits, because this is going to be an area that catches a lot less light. So put it down there, make sure it's set. Be like, oh, that's a nice arm, and then move on to the next part. His face is bothering me a little bit, so I'm going to take a little face detour and kind of pop out some details. So, also to note, the interior of his ears and mouths are going to be made more of a fleshy color, so I don't have to shade necessarily in those right away. And big things that you want to do is make sure that very specific details, details that most people are going to go to on faces, so the eyes, and you don't really have to worry about the nose on these guys because no one's going to miss them, but the eyes and the face and all that sort of stuff are going to need to be really popped out. So, and I painted the eye on this guy as a test, and the eye came out really great. I'm not sure if you guys can see the eye all that well, but came out great. However, I wasn't even done shading the model, which is kind of a whoopsie-doo, which means I'm going to have to like try to maneuver the base, or the shade, excuse me, around there. And I'm putting or forcing more of a shadow between the eyebrow and the nose, even though there necessarily isn't like a hard line. This is just going to help push the expression, where that's something that we definitely want to do. Thank you guys for anyone who's come in to join me. I really appreciate the views. But yeah, all right. I've done my little face bit, so I can go back to shading the rest of him. Oh, thanks, Justin. I appreciate it. Also, on that note, you have sparked quite a bit of jealousy with the staff, because on multiple occasions, I've heard a lot of people, why didn't I think about doing what Justin did with his Stormcast? Because they look so cool. The conversions are phenomenal, and I am a guy who likes his conversions. Here I go. Just adding a little bit more shadow to areas, making sure the cranium is nice and defined. So yeah, these guys are the first of many. Justin, you're here, so I'm gonna pick your brain. Should I do all of my models in this same scheme, this magenta, this dark magenta, or should I change it up and do some rock guts of different stone? So I guess these are my amethyst rock guts. That would make sense, right? So blending in some shadows, making sure it doesn't get too splotchy. If your shades do get splotchy, using a shade medium will help with that. But a lot of that has to do with it starting to dry a lot quicker than, you know, you planned. But yeah, I plan on working on these guys all evening until Mark shows up for a game. So other colors I was thinking about doing one that's going to be closer to like a blue-black. And maybe even trying to do some like magma effects in between the rocks for like trolls from the Realm of Fire. And like doing other kind of like elementals, like maybe doing like a frost one as well. But I'm not super sold on that yet. But I think it could be fun. Like, it's definitely different. But I don't know how many other people will do something of that note. I don't really want to be like super derivative. Like, when I go to a con or something like that, everyone's going to have like magma trolls. Yeah. Blue, black. All right, I might do one set of lava trolls for you. Just to see if I can. I guess doing a set of elemental trolls isn't the worst idea. These guys will be my cave rock guts, my amethyst ones, gemstone. And then I will do a lava set, and then I guess an Arctic set, or maybe a swampy set. I do like me some swamp. It's important while you're doing shadows and things like that to always be looking around the model and trying to find hard to reach places that shadows might touch. And a lot of that is really necessary for when you do like an airbrush layer like I did, because the airbrush will get everywhere without you even really realizing it, and that could lead to some like bright areas on the underside, which are going to destroy any sort of like shadow effect that you would have. And I will talk about how much I love actually painting at Gigabytes. And one of the big reasons why I really enjoy it here is the lighting. Because this is my game store, and I know how exactly these guys are going to look under the light here while I'm painting them. So yeah, the big thing with shadows and shades and all that is be bold. intense shadows create intense emotion in a lot of art. If you look at like Caravaggio or any of the guys that like used heavy chiaroscuro, that style of painting, they were some really like emotional pieces, and I love that stuff. And which is why whenever someone asks me, John, how do I paint better? I will always say contrast. Balancing the light and dark on your models is the #1 way of improving the appearance of it. And right there, I just mixed a little bit of black into this coal black, and I am using it to set up the like folds of the skin a little bit better, which is going to create a darker shadow. So once again, it's just kind of implying that shade a little bit more. So yeah. So, and don't forget easy to forget areas like under the knee, in between the legs. The groin area draws a lot, or excuse me, usually blocks a lot of light, but usually there's that like muscle, which I am forgetting all of my anatomy knowledge. There's that muscle on the inner thigh that kind of like pops out a lot, especially when like legs are further apart or when they're flexing. That can like actually like grab a lot of light. Like you'll just hit light really well. So not to like over highlight or anything like that, but be mindful that it's there, and that especially while you're shading, it might be popping out. But what's everyone's project that they're working on? Whoever's watching. So yeah, this step gets easier and easier the more you do it, and the idea is hopefully after this batch I will be super quick. Now if I am changing up the color pattern, then the what is it, the like muscle memory I've built up for this painting will not be necessarily used as much, but it will help me remember where shadows and details and things like that are going to be. Oh man, that's a lot more than just 4 trogs there, Justin. So I also use a little bit of the shadow, the shade, to touch up a little bit where maybe I did some overspray, like on the armpit area. And it's a pretty easy thing to fix. I mean, it's just basically shading down until it's closer to that shade color than it is the overspray color. But yeah. I'm really excited for, I'll be playing mark my buddy tonight for some league games, provided he's not under the weather anymore. And when you're working on painting something in the round, make sure that you're paying attention to the round and grabbing stuff from all angles. This guy, I have to fix up a couple little pock marks he got on an unfortunate paint accident. So I'll probably be taking care of that in a minute or two. So this guy's quadricep is pretty well defined, so I don't want to throw too much shadow on it other than for where his loincloth is going to get in the way a little bit. But these rock cuts are really great kits. There's so much diversity in the kit, and it all fits together, and it's all pretty dynamic. So I really enjoy it. I don't know if green stuff was in today's shipment. I'll have to double check for you when I'm off the stream, because I too need some green stuff. Or if someone walks back here, I'll ask them to go check for you. I went to a painting class while I was out at a con a couple months ago, and it was really funny. One of the studio painters was talking about how when he does a lot of painting, his feet, the feet that he does, is pretty much just base coat with a wash. And if the feet have a lot of detail, then he'll do a little bit of dry brushing, but he'll call it a day there. And that cracked me up. I'm going to go ahead and try to fix the little scratch marks he got in. The base coat for him was Bogren Brown with a little bit, Murderous Magenta with a little bit of Bogren Brown. And the Bogren Brown was there to more or less desaturate the Murderous Magenta because it is bright. So, doing that, and I might have to add in a little bit more magenta because the brown really does tone it down. I remember going through the same thing when I was airbrushing. And then after that, I might have to add in a little bit of pink just to bring it up to where the highlight color was at. Okay, yeah, I might just stick with this scheme. I'll see how much I like the finished product. So a lot of times I'll get to the finished product and be like, nope, do it over. Alright, cool. I'm hoping this color is acceptable. It's a little too washy. This might take several coats to get over the base, but we will do what we can. Okay, all that setting, let's get back to the wash. Fortunately, with me being left-handed, doing this particular part is probably not great camera work. So once again, he's got a clenched fist, so we're going to drop a lot of this shade in the palm of his hand. So we keep a lot of that in the shadow. And I might come back with like a heavier wash later if I find that it's not deep enough in terms of the shadowing, but we'll see. We won't really know until the color really kind of like sets up and dries, because things can shift. Different pools can kind of set and such.
As usual. Will be.
Once again, a little bit of the touch-up color. And we are going to go back to doing some face details while I stop fiddling with things that need to set. So, making sure the details pop. And we'll be doing a kind of quick highlight stage after the shade stage is done with all these Troggoths.
Well, that's not awesome for about maybe one. I don't think we have any green. Here.
So yeah, just slowly working in this nice patch. And it is slowly repairing the damage I did. And luckily enough, I can tell you guys that the issue I had with the coal black separating seemed to be just specific to that pot. And it might just be because it's old. Ah. And I'm back. Sorry about the sound, folks. So other important things to remember is when you feel that like burnout point hitting, to call it a day. And I'm not there yet, but it was something that I was coming into a couple nights before when I was working on these guys. I started rushing through steps, kind of being a little bit more frantic with the brush strokes, missing details. And if you start to do that, I find it almost always better to stop and come back, you know? Just, it's better to have a good looking product that took you much longer than have kind of a half finished looking piece. I want to blend out the shadow a little bit more on the form. Yeah, cool. And once again, we're going to take some of that cover-up paint, keep applying. Keep working a little bit more of that pink in there. So it all kind of blends together. Alright. Cool. Let's do a little bit of shading on the underbelly and see how that goes. We are going to do Cardiac Flesh, which is this kind of darker tanny skin tone, and we're going to take a little bit of bootstrap leather and we're going to start with that, and then if we need to go darker we absolutely will, but I think this combination should be good enough for the shadows on it. Because we don't want super dark lines, we just want to reinforce what we already put a lot of work into, which is the fades with the airbrushing. So adding a little bit of that mixing medium in here to thin down the opacity, and let's give it a test. So where we're going to apply this is going to be the obvious deep lines in him, and this is a nice subtle shade that we can hopefully use on a majority of this model to pop out the detail we want to, and then we can come back in with a, excuse me, holding this up too. It actually needs to be thinned down a little bit so it flows a little bit better. So this is going to be used a lot on the pectorals, underneath, the clavicle area. And definitely where the belly kind of starts to distend. But a lot of this, like especially this step, since we're going to a softer color and we are applying it on what should be a softer area of the model, it is up to you to gradually build up these shadows. So don't rush anything. Make sure whatever you do, you know, you can come back to and fix. And you can also kind of come in and deepen some things, you know, while not destroying that nice blend you got. So yeah, this has, to me, been a lot of fun. I hope you guys have learned something. I'm going to go ahead and turn his insides of his ears, that pinky color I want. So yeah, since he doesn't have his mouth open, it won't require us to paint the interior of his mouth. But I do like this for a nice little like new color to the palette. Kind of showing interior skin. Thought about doing this like really far out color at first, like a green or something, but I think it would turn him from something that I could see like existing into something too kind of fantastical. But yeah, I like these guys' kind of big floppy ears that they got going on. Alright, stay on focus. Back to shades. Alright, make sure to definitely catch the underside of his belly. Basically where it meets the seam or the top of his loincloth. And the armpits are going to be a really big focal point for this shade, because he has his flank muscles. I want to say it's the serratus. Anyone who knows more about anatomy than me, please feel free to correct me. But yeah, I am coming back and constantly reinforcing the shades. This shade is so light, and with the actual color of the model, that I don't have to blend it nearly as much as I had to with the coal black. Coal black was very, very far from that magenta we initially started with. So yeah, and I'm gonna grab his teeth, or underneath the teeth, like where the lips are at. I'm probably, I don't know if I'm going to do the lips like a different color or like redden up the lips. I always have an issue to where if like the lips get too red or whatever, I don't want him to look like he's wearing you know, makeup. Not that he necessarily has anything against wearing makeup, I just, you know, if he's going to battle, he's not gonna put on his best face. At least that's my headcanon. Maybe he's the fanciest troll in his Trogg herd. So he's got these like little dots around his belly, and I am going to, you know, kind of dab around them to pop them out. And I might later go with like a like an off color, like a red or a blue or something like that, and make them look like growths of some sort. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how he's coming out. I'm going to go ahead and start doing a little bit of highlighting on the belly and the flesh parts. I am going to, however, kind of course correct an area where the purple spilt over a little too much. So yeah, doing all the shadow has also let us kind of see where the highlight should go. And so we are going to grab some of this Men Up White highlight. We are going to make sure that it's thinned enough from the pot to provide a nice layer for highlighting. So grab a thin brush.
Alright, don't
And what we're going to do is we're going to, once again, kind of find where our shades we're staying away from. And then kind of really pop the definition. And we're going to be really intensifying the lines. So we're going to try to make sure that a high line or a light line is next to a dark line. That goes to that contrast again. It's going to build visual interest, and it's going to draw people in to look at the model itself. So, and once again, as long as you keep your paint thin and you keep coming back to it, you're going to slowly build it up over the layers where it'll be nice and gradual and not a really stark contrast. Because when you get to skin tones, you don't want, unless the skin itself is really, really, really reflective, you don't want those kinds of drastic changes. Once again, if I decide to come in with a deeper shadow layer, these highlights that I'm putting in will kind of show me or give me the guidelines to doing a more effective shadow layer, because I'll know that I should push my shadows closer to the edge of where the highlight is. And I'm hoping all this is standing out for you guys. Or being somewhat helpful. So yeah, always be mindful about your highlights and where they're going, and you know how to best accentuate. Kind of want the light to catch on the tops of these muscles. So I'm doing just like a little line, and I'm not gonna like push it too much, because once again, these parts are going more in the shadow than outside the shadow. It's just a detail that I enjoy about the model, so I wanted to push that. And the top of the belly, and these little kind of like pimply things, they need to be highlighted. So yeah, nice and easy, like a summer morning. Is that the phrase? Summer day? I will probably come in with at least a ink or something like that, probably for the lips and the like chest features. So like nipples and belly button and all that fun stuff will probably have to get a little bit reddened, but I will try to keep that as minimal as possible, because it becomes a little too jarring if it's a focal point. One of the important parts is make sure that the light is like a little fold of the belly button that you want to catch with the light, and then you want to make sure that you catch the bottom of the belly button with it as well. So once again, you make that feature stand out. So yeah. It's getting to be that point at the end of the stream, so I will be signing off in just a minute or so. But if you guys have any questions or anything like that that you want me to talk about real quick before we end the stream for today, I'll be happy to discuss it with y'all. If not, I will catch y'all next Thursday during our next painting stream. Oop. See a point where I need to soften some shadows. Always try to catch rogue lines, things like that, things that don't make shadows look super nice. So yeah, thank you guys. I will catch y'all next paint stream.